Hello and welcome back to the Look Into It podcast. I'm your host, Renee. I just want to say you guys could be anywhere in these podcast streets, but you're here with me, and that's special. I hope everybody's had a prosperous week. Continue to hustle and motivate and grind towards your goals because they're getting closer. Did you guys see the video of that white woman in New York in Tribeca? She was calling a black deli worker a nigger because he refused to serve her because she wasn't wearing a mask. Did you guys hear that this woman has come out and said that her husband is black and he says nigger all the time, so she should be able to say it too, and she wasn't being antagonizing towards him. She was using it as a term of endearment like other black people do. If this bitch don't sit the fuck down, first of all, I really doubt that she has a black husband, and if she does, he is white identified. And if he is black, I'm fairly certain I would put some money down on it that she calls him a nigger in the bedroom, that he is a complete and utter bedbuck, which is the complete opposite of a bedwench. It's just, well, not really the opposite, it's just the male version. A black man who sleeps with white women and allows himself to be degraded racially and humiliated, that is a bedbuck. And if that's the case, I just really don't have anything constructive to say about that. But that's a story for another day. What we're going to be looking into tonight is mass shooters. Since we've had another mass shooting in Colorado this week, I really wanted to sit up here and talk about these mass shootings that are going on right now. And since these white supremacists or white identity extremists tend to think of themselves as descendants from Greek gods, the question is, are they looking for a theseus? For those who don't remember from school or just don't know in general, Theseus was an Athenian man who was fighting in the Greek war, whatever, against the Persians. Don't get me to lie on the name of it. It doesn't matter. Anyway, he was supposed to be the man who shot the bow that killed King Darius. When King Darius died, his son Xerxes rose to power, and that was what really kicked off this war. It had nothing to do with the Leonidas and the 300. They were simply doing what they were bred to do. The Spartans were a warrior society whose ultimate goal in life was to die for their country. So they did what they were supposed to do. They broke the heart gates, and they basically held off and had to make the Persians reroute so that all the other Greek city-states could join up and fight. Understand this, the war they are trying to do isn't similar to what the Greeks were trying to do. The Greeks were trying to escape persecution. Pretty much the Persians at the time would have been the British trying to control the world, and the Greeks were fighting for their freedom, whereas white identity extremists or white nationalists today, they're fighting for an ethno cleanse. I mentioned last week about the RAHOA, and that's the racial holy war that they're trying to either kick off or some people say it's happening right now. But at any rate, the younger white supremacists are trying to start a civil war right now. The RAHOA is for the older ones, like the baby boomers. That's pretty much their focus right now. But the younger ones are doing what's called the Boogaloo, and that's the Civil War 2.0. The commonality between the RAHOA and the Boogaloo is that niggas are bad and they deserve to be back in chains. The younger white nationalists or white identity extremists are more focused on a civil war. They want to experience the antebellum and the segregation that their grandparents talk about so fondly. They want to experience that. So that's why they're trying to kick off a civil war to get black people back onto these plantations. Now, if you tour the South, you're going to see signs on the highway that, they're advertising you can come spend the night in this plantation, that plantation, this, that, and the other. Why do you think that these plantations have been preserved so well throughout history? It's not for a tourist attraction for you to take a freaking picture next to, like you're taking a picture in a big ass chair on some beach in Florida. No, these things were preserved as monuments to white supremacy because they feel that the South will truly rise again. Now, you guys hear me using the term white identity extremist, and I want to give you a definition on what that is. A white identity extremist is a white person, usually a male, who has an ideology similar to Adolf Hitler. He's probably read Mein Kampf a lot of the time, and he probably keeps a copy of the Turner Diaries on his person at all times, and he is constantly going to be looking for something to blow up, or an area where there are a lot of people where he can kill so that he can be a good soldier in the white genetic army. Our Queen Mother, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, ashe to that ancestor and her warrior spirit, she taught us of white genetic annihilation and how that is a fear of theirs because all it takes is for them to lay with a non-white person, and that offspring is not going to be white. That offspring will be whatever ethnicity that the non-white person was. They have the weakest genetic gene pool, and that makes them scared because they are falling off of the planet at a rapid rate. If you guys want to read more about that, make sure that you get her book, The ISIS Papers, The Keys to the Colors. Again, I've talked about that book before. It changed my whole outlook in life and dealing with other people, and it's taught me a lot. So make sure you get that. The most prime example of a white identity extremist would be Dylan Roof. He was the Charleston mass shooter. He went into the church and he shot 9 black people. Now, he carried it out to the T. And when they searched his room, they found a copy of Mein Kampf and a copy of the Turner Diaries. So, Renee almost knows what she's talking about. You just have to pay attention. But he wrote a manifesto about how black men are raping white women and how white people are becoming a minority. Now, understand this. Whenever a white supremacist uses the term raping our women, the act of rape in the mind of a white supremacist is any sexual act that happens between a black man and a white woman that is considered rape to them. Whereas if a white supremacist male sleeps with a black female, that is a joke that they have called ending racism. There's actually a ritual that white supremacist males do. They don't consider themselves to be real males until they've slept with a black woman. And that is what's called splitting dark oak. Don't believe me? Look it up. Get a grasp on this, a firm grasp at that. We are in a racial war right now. And women have always been the casualty of war. You conquer the male and you take his woman. That is basically how war has worked since the dawn of time. And with white supremacists conquering black males and putting them in incarceration or killing them and things like that, that leaves black women, children, and elderly to be vulnerable. That is why Dylan Roof went to a church which was full of elderly and youth that could not defend themselves. These people are very methodical and they know their niggas. They know where to go to attack them. Now let's look into this Boulder, Colorado mass shooter. His name is Ahmad Alawi, and the white supremacists almost got off with him because they're like, "Oh God, he isn't white. He's Syrian." Understand this: when these Syrian people come over here, they identify as white, and because he has a Muslim name, and in the mind of a white supremacist, understand Muslim means black. But because this guy has a Muslim name, they're using the old denial of whiteness card. Now, what this individual did was he went into a grocery store in Boulder, Colorado, and just started busting on motherfuckers. Just spraying and praying. And what happened was when the police got there, I'm going to tell you how they thought he was white. He got treated like a white man before they figured out his name. When they were arresting him, he had removed all his clothes. He was standing there in his drawers, and they shot him in the leg to disarm him. Had he been black, it would be a whole nother situation. He would have been shot right between the eyes. So these people, before they figured out his name, he got treated like a white man. But when they found out his names, they putting it on Muslims. And for the record, Muslim is not an ethnicity. It is a religion. Don't believe what the media tells you. These Muslim people, no, those are people who practice Islam. An ethnicity would be, hey, Syrian, or a lot of East African people practice Islam. So don't believe when they're trying to use the term Muslim as an ethnicity, because it is not. And believe it or not, Islam has a higher following than Christianity. Islam is the most practiced religion in the world. They're some of the most peaceful people you will ever meet, but because America needs a boogeyman, and the Russians weren't doing it at the time, though they are making a comeback. America needs a boogeyman, so they radicalized Islam and made them to be feared. That's what 9/11 was about. Now get this, when it comes to the denial of whiteness game, that's something that all white people know how to play. Everybody has hung out with a white person who's been like, "Oh, I'm not white, I'm Irish," or "I'm Italian," or something like that. Now, these groups of people were formerly prosecuted by white people, quote unquote. But when white people's numbers begin to dwindle, they have become accepted as white to boost up their numbers. And currently, that's the game that they're playing with Asian people right now. Understand this, that there is a hierarchy in white society. British descended white people would be at the top of that chain. And then you have your white subgroups of the Irish, the German, the Polish, all these people who were formerly persecuted by British descended white people who have later become accepted as white. And the thing is, to become accepted as white, you have to prove your allegiance to that ethno group by defaming black people and making them a boogie person within your own culture. Once you get a collective ethno group that denounces black people, within 2 generations, maybe 1, depending on how bad their numbers are down, but within 2 generations, those people are accepted as white. Look at the Irish. They were never slaves, however, they were indentured servants. And once they started to deface and denounce black people and all that stuff, they became white. In fact, Irish people were some of the first overseers on plantations. That was the only job that they could get after they finished their term of indentured servitude. And a lot of them were sleeping with black women. And why do you think so many of us have the name Murphy? That's an Irish name. And Smith is another common Irish last name that a lot of black people have. Just ask yourself how we got these names. And the biggest game that they play with these mass shooters are the lone wolf narrative. They want to make it seem like this was just a one-off situation, but it can't be a one-off situation when it's happening every other week. Now, these people are connected through these different message boards like the Daily Stormer or Stormfront and things like that, and they talk to each other and they organize these incidents on the dark web. And believe it or not, a lot of them organize on Xbox Live, and also Reddit is also a popular message board for white supremacists. 4chan is as well. But when it comes to Reddit, you got to look at who owns Reddit. Serena Williams' husband. So that man is splitting dark oak, and he quote unquote is denouncing racism, and he loves this black wife. But in my opinion, and like I always say, I could be wrong because I have been miseducated in a system of white supremacy, but I really think that he's using her as a prop because his website is rampant with white supremacist people. And he's denouncing this, and he's got one of the most popular black women on the planet right now on his arm. That whole situation is a little funny style to me, but who the hell am I? But anyway, what they do with these people is they give them a mental illness. Now, the brother of the Colorado mass shooter said that he was bullied in high school. They made fun of his name and the fact that he was Syrian, and they made fun of his religion, and that made him paranoid, and that's why he lashed out. Let's go back to a couple weeks ago with the shooter of the Asian massage parlors, and they said that he had a bad day and a sex addiction, which made him shoot up an Asian massage parlor. And so what they try to do with these people is humanize them. They give them mental illness, which is a hot topic right now. People have been suffering from mental illness for eternity. And so if they give them that and they give you a sob backstory to it, you know, their goal is to make you feel a certain type of way about them, like, oh man, like this person, they had all this happen to them, so it was just a matter of time before they acted out, which is not the case. These people are carrying out cleansings. If you're a certain age, you probably had Where's Waldo books in your classroom, or you had them at home. Shout out to my mom for always making sure I had a pretty decent library when I was growing up. But anyway, these people are trying to be Where's Theseus. They want to be the person who shoots the bow that sparks the war. Don't expect these mass shootings to stop anytime soon. These things have been popping off every few months over the past 10 years. And I really want to get into the fallout from it, or the results that are possibly going to happen from this right now. Y'all's forever white uncle, so-called President Joe Biden, this week he made a statement where he's going to start pushing for a bill for police to go inside of people's homes and take their weapons. Because remember, he made his bones in the election on turning guns in and getting guns off of the street. He wants police with no warrant to just go into people's houses and take their guns. Now, I'm not condoning violence or anything like that. I am a proud supporter of the Second Amendment, which gives me the right to bear arms. Now, if somebody tries to come in my house and take my guns, ain't nobody leaving this house. We all gonna see whoever we need to see to face our judgment. Now, mind you, I'm just speaking hyperbole. Look it up. Now, with him on his soapbox, talking like he's Big Dick Randy, what does he want to take these guns for? What does he want us defenseless for? Because a gun itself can be loaded, cocked, and ready to go and sit on a table for 100 years and not kill anybody. It's people who pull the trigger, and it's people who have bad intent with these weapons. They are not toys. What is coming is the question that I'm asking. Is it martial law, where we are completely dependent on the government, because something is coming, but I haven't figured out what it is yet. But with something brewing in the air, more importantly, what does it mean for Black people? Other groups have things in place to protect them, government programs, or even their own communities. Shout out to the Jews, because see, they're the only ethnic group in the United States that can police themselves. Take a trip to New York. You're going to see Jewish neighborhoods that are patrolled by Jewish officers. They can protect themselves and they can handle themselves within their own community. And even take a look at the Amish and the Mennonite communities. They're alone and they police themselves. They're protected within their own culture. Black Americans are truly naked in society. We have no true government to protect us, and our communities, for the most part, don't have the funds or the resources to protect ourselves. So in the event of mass government shutdown and the ushering in of a martial law type situation, what are we going to do? Every other group can rally the cavalry and hold off for at least some type of time, while we just have to sit up here and just march ourselves into concentration camps. Because remember, those camps that the Japanese were in, those internment camps, they still exist. And I just want to end it with this. About 2.5 hours east of me, one of the most unknown yet still known atrocities that have happened to Black American people, recently freed slaves, occurred. There was an internment camp where Civil War Confederates placed recently freed slaves called the Devil's Punch Bowl in Natchez, Mississippi. They marched defenseless people with no type of anything to protect themselves into a camp, and 20,000 of them died. And after the Civil War, what they did was they buried these people. And and this is a true story, when the rains are heavy, bones are still washing up from those people in that internment camp. They say it was 20,000, but it's speculated that it could possibly be more, because the 20,000 people who are recorded to have died there are the only people who could write their names. And these were recently freed slaves who were kept from reading and writing. Now, when there was no more need for this camp, and all these people were dead and buried on this land, what they did was plant peach orchards. And the peaches to this day still thrive there because of what fertilizes the ground. In the Black community in this area that I live, it's an open secret that you don't eat Natchez peaches, because you know what makes them grow. And in the summertime, there's actually a peach festival, and guess who sponsors it? Natchez Peaches. Well, with that, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. If you don't have a gun, get a gun. If you can't shoot, learn. If you can shoot, practice. Because ammo is cheap, but our lives are not. Big shout out to Tone Deaf Radio Network, TDR Radio. Make sure you guys are checking out the rest of my podcast family on the network, because every show on there teaches you something and it is fire. If you guys got anything you want to say to me, make sure you're hitting me up on email at lookintoitpod21@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram at TheRealLookIntoItPod, and practice your situational awareness, guys. Shit's about to get turned up. It's going to be a hot summer. And with that, later days.